Then you can sleep in the garage tonight. Those were the words my wife said to me. In my own house. Over an insult I gave to the man who stole her company, forged her signature, and was quietly dismantling our marriage from the outside while she let him. My name is Toby Evans. I'm a contractor. I build and restore old houses for a living. I find things that are broken and I figure out what went wrong at the foundation. I've been doing it since I was 19. I'm good at it. And I want to tell you exactly how I came home one evening to find my wife's ex sitting at my dinner table, eating the pasta she only makes on special occasions, and how everything I thought I knew about my marriage started to come apart at the seams. Quietly. The way rot always does, before it takes the whole wall with it. It started on a Tuesday. I'd been on site for 14 hours that day. A Victorian-era row house in the east side of the city. The kind of job that requires you to be part carpenter, part archaeologist, part negotiator between what the original builders intended and what 100 years of neglect has done to their vision. I came home with sawdust in my collar and concrete dust on my boots. I was tired in the good way, the kind of tired that earns itself. I unlocked the front door and I heard laughter. Two voices. One was Maya's. The other was a man's, warm, practiced, the kind of laugh that knows exactly how loud it needs to be to fill a room. I walked into the dining room. The table was set beautifully. Candles lit. The good wine glasses, the ones we keep at the back of the cabinet because they were a wedding gift and Maya is careful with things that matter. The pasta was on the stove, the kind she makes with a slow-cooked tomato base that takes 3 hours and fills the whole house. She only makes it on birthdays, anniversaries, and the rare evenings when she wants to say something she hasn't figured out how to say out loud yet. And sitting across from her, comfortable as a man who'd been there before, was someone I had never met. Maya looked up when I walked in. She smiled the way you smile when you've already rehearsed this moment. Oh good, you're home. Baby, this is Billy. We ran into each other at the farmer's market today, and I invited him for dinner. Hope that's okay. I looked at the table. I looked at Billy. I noticed that his wine glass was already poured. Not recently, either. The glass had a faint condensation ring forming on the tablecloth, the kind that only happens when a drink has been sitting a while. Someone had expected me to be late. I sat down. I ate. I was polite. I asked Billy the standard questions. What he did, where he was from, how he and Maya knew each other. He answered all of them smoothly, the way a man does when he's answered versions of those questions many times before. He called her May once, just once, and she didn't correct him. After dinner, Billy left. I washed the dishes in silence. Maya came up behind me and put her hand on my shoulder. You okay? She asked. Who is he to you, Maya? I told you. An old friend. You cooked the pasta. I cook pasta all the time. Not with candles, you don't. The kitchen went quiet. The tap dripped. Maya walked away without answering. I finished the dishes. I threw away the dinner napkins. And when I lifted the lid of the trash can, I saw it, pressed flat against the bottom, face down, clearly placed there deliberately, a photograph. I picked it up. It was Maya and Billy, standing outside what looked like a restaurant, both of them laughing. Not the stiff, posed laugh of people who've just reconnected. The easy, unguarded laugh of people who are still comfortable with each other. The timestamp in the corner of the photo read 7 days ago. I put it in my jacket pocket. I turned off the kitchen light, and I went to bed next to my wife, who was already pretending to be asleep. I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to Maya breathe beside me, and I thought about the photograph. The timestamp, the way Billy had said May, the way she hadn't corrected him. At 1:17 in the morning, I slid out of bed, went to the living room, and sat down on the couch with my phone, the screen the only light in the house. I typed 2 words into the search bar. Billy Trent. The results loaded slowly, the way they do at that hour, like even the internet was reluctant to show me what I was about to find. And then there it was. Billy Trent wasn't some casual acquaintance Maya had bumped into at a farmer's market. He had a company, a real estate development firm, mid-sized but growing, featured in 2 local business journals in the last 18 months. His LinkedIn photo showed a man in an expensive suit standing in front of a building with his name on the signage. He drove a car I recognized from the driveway, I clocked it without realizing why. That cost more than my entire tool inventory and work truck combined. I scrolled further. I found a social media post from 3 months ago. A charity gala, black tie, the kind of event Maya and I had never attended together because we were building our savings, and that was fine. That was a choice we'd made. In the background of the photo, barely visible but unmistakable, was a woman in a red dress, standing near the bar, laughing at something off camera. I enlarged the image until the pixels started to break apart. It was Maya, in a dress I had never seen. My chest did something strange. Not quite pain, not quite anger. Something quieter than both. I kept scrolling. I found an old article, dated 5 years ago, a business announcement from a local property consultancy. A new firm. 2 co-founders. The first name was Billy Trent. The second name was Maya Reyes. Her maiden name. I read the article 3 times. They hadn't just dated. They had built something together. For 2 years, according to the article, the firm had been growing steadily. Small clients at first, then larger ones, a commercial property portfolio that was starting to attract serious attention. The article described Maya Reyes as the operational backbone of the company, Billy Trent as the face. And then, nothing. The company's trail went quiet. No follow-up article. No expansion announcement. Just silence. And then a few years later, Billy's name reappearing on a completely rebranded firm with no mention of a co-founder at all. I thought about my father then. I couldn't help it. He'd spent 4 years trying to prove that the signature on a refinancing document wasn't his. 4 years, everything he'd saved, every relationship he'd built, and the man who forged it had simply moved on and started over. I was 19 when it happened. I watched my father shrink. I told myself, standing at his kitchen table going through legal papers I barely understood, that I would learn how these things worked. That I would never be the man standing there, blindsided, holding documents that had already decided his fate before he'd even seen them. I closed my phone. I put on my boots. I went out to my truck and I sat in the driveway for 2 hours, with the heater running and the radio off, watching the light above the front door that Maya always leaves on for me. I didn't know what she'd signed. I didn't know what she'd lost. I didn't know yet the full shape of what Billy Trent had taken from her, or what he was still taking. But I knew, sitting in that truck in the dark, that the woman I'd married had been carrying something heavy for a long time, and she had decided, for reasons I didn't yet understand, that I was not the person she could put it down with. That hurt more than the photograph. I didn't bring it up that night, or the next morning. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner across from my wife, and I watched her the way you watch a house you're about to open up, carefully, looking for the places where the surface doesn't quite match what's underneath. I gave it one more day because I wanted to be sure I wasn't reacting. My father reacted. He came home the day he found out about the forged document, and he reacted, loudly, immediately, with everything he had, and it cost him the only leverage he'd had. I learned from that. I learned to wait until I knew exactly what I was holding before I put it on the table. The next morning, Maya was making coffee. I came into the kitchen, took the photograph out of my jacket pocket, and placed it flat on the counter between us without a word. She looked at it. She didn't flinch, and that itself told me something, because Maya flinches at small surprises. A car horn outside. The phone ringing unexpectedly. She startles easily. But she looked at that photograph with the stillness of someone who had already prepared for the possibility of being caught. And that stillness was worse than any reaction I could have anticipated. She picked it up, looked at it for 3 seconds, placed it face down. Where did you get this? The trash. You buried it under the dinner napkins. I didn't want to upset you. Maya, you had a recent photograph of your ex-boyfriend from me, and you're framing that as protecting my feelings. Billy and I are just. Don't. She stopped. She looked at me, and then she pivoted, and this is the part one keep coming back to, even now, because it was so smooth, so practiced, that I wonder how long she'd been rehearsing it. Is going through something difficult right now. He reached out. I'm not going to abandon someone who needs help just because you're insecure about my past. The word insecure landed exactly the way she intended it to, like a hand pressed flat against a bruise. Because Maya knows me. She knows that the one thing I cannot stand to be seen as is a man who is threatened by things he doesn't understand. She knows that because I told her, early in our relationship, one of those late-night conversations where you hand someone the map to all your soft places, trusting them to navigate carefully. She had that map, and she used it. I didn't take the bait. I kept my voice level. You co-founded a company with him, Maya. You have a legal agreement with him, and you have never told me either of those things. Her face went absolutely still. Not the stillness of calm. The stillness of someone who has just realized the conversation has moved somewhere they didn't expect. How do you know about a legal agreement? I don't. Fully. But the way you just reacted tells me everything I needed to know. She sat down. She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. Both hands, the way she does when she needs something to hold on to. And we stayed there in the silence of the kitchen for a long moment. The kind of silence that has weight to it, that presses against the walls of a room. And I picked up my keys. I'll be back after work, I said. And Maya, I'm not angry, but I need you to think about whether there is anything else you haven't told me, because I would rather hear it from you than find it somewhere else. I walked to the front door. I passed Maya's jacket hanging on the hook beside it, the gray one she wears on cool mornings. As I reached past it for the door handle, her phone buzzed inside the pocket. The screen lit up through the fabric, just bright enough for me to read the contact name glowing through the lining. A blue heart, then a single letter. B. I opened the door and walked to my truck. I sat in the driveway for 30 seconds before I started the engine. And then I drove to work, and I thought about rut and foundations and how long a wall can look perfectly fine before the whole thing comes down at once. Billy was already there when I got home Saturday. I know because I came through the back gate to drop my tools, and I heard voices through the open kitchen window before I even reached the deck. I stopped. I set down my bag quietly. Billy's voice, you told him yet? Maya, no, not yet. I'm waiting for the right time. Billy, Maya, we're running out of time here. Maya, I know that. Stop pressuring me. I walked around to the front door, into the kitchen. They were standing close, not touching, but the kind of close that has a long history behind it. Billy saw me first. He straightened, extended his hand with that practiced smile. Toby, good to see you, man. I didn't take the hand. I looked at Maya. What is he waiting for you to tell me? Silence. Maya, it's a business thing. It's complicated. Billy stepped in, smooth and unhurried. Old financial stuff. Maya's been helping me sort it out. Nothing sinister. I looked at him for a long moment. You're standing in my kitchen, using my wife's time, and you're calling it nothing. No need to be hostile, man. And there it was. That smile. That easy, dismissive smile that assumes the other person in the room will back down. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You're a man who steals from the people closest to him and calls it business, I said. I don't have a problem being hostile to that. Maya's face went white. Billy's smile didn't break. It widened. Slowly, like I had just played exactly the card he wanted me to play. I didn't understand that yet, but I would. Maya waited until Billy's car left the driveway. Then she turned to me, and what I saw in her face wasn't anger. It was something colder, more deliberate than anger. You had no right to speak to him like that. He's in my house, Maya. He is a guest. He's your ex, who you've been secretly meeting, who you're keeping secrets with in my kitchen. You're being paranoid and embarrassing. That word again. Embarrassing. Another one from the map she'd been given. You owe him an apology, she said. I'm not apologizing to that man. She looked at me steadily. Then you can sleep in the garage tonight. I heard it clearly. I let it sit in the air between us for a full 5 seconds. Say that again. You heard me. Until you apologize to Billy, you're not sleeping in our room. I walked to the bedroom. I opened the drawer where I keep important documents. The ones I've always kept organized in a single manila folder because my father taught me that lesson the hard way. I found what I was looking for. I carried it back to the bedroom and placed it on top of the duvet, flat, face up. Then I leaned against the door frame and waited. Maya came in. She looked at the paper on the bed. She picked it up. She read it slowly, all the way to the bottom, where the ownership line held a single name in clean black type. Tobias A. Evans. The house was mine. Had been mine for 4 years before she ever walked through the door. I'd bought it gutted and broken, and I'd rebuilt it myself. Every beam, every wall, every fixture, over 18 months of evenings and weekends. I never made it a point of discussion because it had never needed to be. Until now. She looked up from the paper. You're using the house against me. I'm showing you the reality of what you just said. I'm not sleeping in the garage, I said. I'm not apologizing to Billy Trent. And I'm not going to keep pretending this marriage is healthy while you secretly orbit a man who took everything from you and is apparently still taking. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. Right now. Tell me everything, and I will stand here and listen to every word. She opened her mouth, then closed it, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever heard in that house. I want you to go stay somewhere else tonight, I said. Cool off. Think about what's actually happening here. Because I love you. I do. But I will not be made to feel like the problem in my own home. You're kicking me out. I'm asking you to leave. Tonight. And think. She stood there for 10 seconds. Then she walked to the closet and pulled out a bag. She packed with a calm, efficient precision that hollowed me out completely. Because it was the precision of someone who had done this before, who had stood in a room that used to feel safe and packed a bag while keeping her face perfectly neutral. And I realized in that moment that Billy Trent had taught her how to do that. He'd given her that particular skill. The skill of leaving without breaking down. She walked past me without a word. I heard the front door close. The car backed out. I went to the kitchen and made a full pot of coffee. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I opened the message. She's going to tell you it was about the money. It wasn't. Ask her what she agreed to. I called the number immediately. 4 rings. Voicemail. A woman's voice, older, composed. I didn't recognize it. I texted back. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Stopped. Started again. Someone who watched Billy destroy the last woman who tried to protect him. Don't let him do it again. I put the phone down and opened my laptop. I wasn't searching Billy this time. I was searching Maya. Specifically, the legal trail she'd left behind. It took an hour of cross-referencing old business filings, court records, and county documents before I found it. A civil suit, 4 years old, filed by Billy's company against Maya Reyes. Breach of NDA. The suit had been dismissed, but buried in the filing language was a clause I had to read 3 times to fully understand. Maya had agreed, in exchange for the suit being dropped, to provide consulting assistance to Billy's company if it ever required it. No time limit. No scope limit. Just an open obligation, signed under duress, that Billy had kept in his back pocket like a card he always knew he'd eventually play. His company was now in serious financial trouble. He'd come back to collect. I thought about my father again. About the document he hadn't read carefully enough. About the 4 years that followed. I thought about the 19-year-old version of me sitting at that kitchen table with legal papers spread out everywhere, telling myself, learn how this works. Never be the man standing here. I closed the laptop. I looked at the clock. 12:48 a.m. I thought about Maya packing that bag with her face completely neutral. I thought about who taught her that. And I thought about the fact that she had been carrying this, quietly, alone, out of shame, for 3 months inside our marriage. Inside our house. Next to me every night. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Check his latest LLC filing. Look for a name you recognize. My phone rang at 2:09 a.m. Maya. I answered before the second ring. Toby, I need you to come get me. Her voice was different. Smaller. Like something in her had been toned down low. Where are you? A pause that lasted too long. Billy's office building. The parking garage. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Maya. Please. I know what it sounds like. But I need you. Please come. I went. Of course I went. I found her sitting on a concrete parking barrier in the half-dark, bag beside her, still in the same clothes she'd packed with. She'd been crying. Not recently, but the evidence was written on her face the way weather writes itself on old wood. I sat beside her. I didn't touch her. I waited. He told me tonight that the consulting agreement doesn't end until he decides it ends, she said. He said if I walk away, he reopens the lawsuit. He has lawyers on retainer. How long has he been saying this? 3 months. Why didn't you tell me? She looked at her hands. Because you built everything you have by yourself, Toby. Your house, your business, your life. You've never failed at anything you started. And I let a man erase me from my own work. I couldn't figure out how to say that to someone like you without watching something change in your eyes. The parking garage hummed around us. Somewhere above us, a car door closed. Nothing would have changed in my eyes, I said. She nodded slowly, like she wanted to believe that, but wasn't sure she did yet. My phone buzzed. The unknown number again. I opened the message and turned the screen toward Maya without saying anything. Her eyes moved across it. Then she went very still. Check his latest LLC filing. Look for a name you recognize. I pulled up the filing right there, scrolled to the officers section, and there it was, Maya Evans, listed as financial officer, with a signature dated 6 weeks ago on a document she had never seen before in her life. Did you sign this? I asked. No, barely a whisper. Did you sign anything for his company after you left? Anything at all? Just the NDA. Nothing else. Ever. I stood up. I opened my wallet and took out a business card. My attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Carol Briggs who had handled 3 of my property disputes over the years and won all of them. I held it out to Maya. We call her first thing in the morning. Toby. He forged your signature on a financial filing, Maya. That makes you legally liable for his company's debt unless we move before his creditors do. This isn't a personal problem anymore. This is a crime. She stayed at the card in my hand. Then she looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen from her in months. Open, unguarded. The way she used to look at me in the early days before whatever weight she was carrying had slowly pulled her expression inward. You're helping me, she said. After everything You're my wife. I knew about fraud in a way most people don't because I had watched it work. My father's business partner had forged his signature on a refinancing document when I was 19. My father didn't move fast enough. He trusted the process, trusted that the truth would surface cleanly on its own, and by the time the legal machinery caught up to reality, the damage was permanent. I had spent 15 years since then learning contracts, property law, financial filings, not because I planned to use that knowledge, but because I had promised myself at 19 that I would never stand in a room holding documents that had already decided my fate. Billy Trent had forged my wife's name, and I was not my father. I moved fast. I was at Billy's office at 7 the next morning. His assistant wasn't in yet. He opened the door himself, fresh suit, practiced smile. I stepped inside and placed a manila folder on his desk. I opened it. The forged LLC filing. A printed timeline of every documented contact between him and Maya cross-referenced against the filing dates. A copy of the original NDA with the coercion clause highlighted. Everything clean, everything sourced, everything dated. Billy's smile faded. 3 things, I said. A signed statement that Maya has no financial association with your company and that her signature was added without her consent. Your attorney contacts mine today to nullify the consulting obligation, because that clause was obtained through coercion, and any court will see it that way. And you never contact my wife again. Not about business. Not as a friend. Not anyway. And if I say no, then I send this filing to the State Business Registry Fraud Division, the county DA, and the journalist who published your profile piece 3 years ago and quietly posted a retraction 6 months later. I emailed her 2 nights ago. She responded in 40 minutes. Billy went completely still. You researched me, he said slowly. I renovate old houses. You want to know what I'm actually good at? Finding where the rot is. He picked up his phone, looked at the screen. Something on it drained the last of the composure from his face. He placed it face down on the desk and looked at me. And for the first time, behind all that practiced smoothness, I saw what was actually there. A man who had spent his entire life using people as infrastructure and had just discovered that one of them had finally built something he couldn't get through. He signed within 48 hours. Quietly. Through lawyers. Every document. 3 days after Billy signed everything, a woman knocked on my front door. Mid-50s. Sharp eyes. Neat coat. She introduced herself, and I recognized the last name immediately. Carolyn Trent, Billy's mother. I sent you those texts, she said. May I come in? She sat at my kitchen table and she told me things with the calm exhaustion of someone who has held a difficult truth for a very long time and has finally decided the wait isn't worth it. She told me Billy had done this before, a business partner 3 years before Maya, stripped of his contribution and erased from the company's history. She told me that 6 months ago, she had discovered Billy had listed her own property as collateral on a restructuring loan. Without asking, without telling her, she slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a notarized statement, her own account of a decade of Billy's behavior, documented, dated, and signed. Everything Dana Coos, the journalist, would need to finish what her retraction note had started. He's my son, Carolyn said. I love him, but I stopped protecting him from himself a long time ago. I just took too long to stop protecting him from everyone else. She stood, thanked me for the coffee she hadn't touched, and left. I sat at the table for a long time after the door closed, holding the envelope, thinking about what it costs a mother to do something like that. Thinking about what it costs anyone to finally stop absorbing someone else's damage and decide it ends here. I forwarded the envelope to Carol Briggs that afternoon. She forwarded it to Dana Coos. The article published 11 days later. Billy's company folded within a month. The fraud investigation is still ongoing as I tell you this. A week after the article published, Maya and I sat on the back deck in the early morning. Coffee, the light coming slow and pale through the yard. Neither of us said anything for a long time, the comfortable kind of silence, not the weighted kind. We'd had enough of the weighted kind to last us. I treated you like the problem, she said finally, when I was the one who'd built a wall and then got angry that you couldn't see through it. Why didn't you think you could tell me? She turned the mug in her hands. Because you've never failed at anything you started. Everything you touch, you finish. You built this house with your hands, Toby. I lost a company I built with my mind to a man I loved, and then I signed a document that let him keep owning a piece of me for years after. I couldn't figure out how to put that next to everything you are. I looked at the yard, at the back fence I'd rebuilt from scratch 2 summers ago, post by post, because the original one had been slowly sinking into soft ground for years and nobody had noticed until it was nearly gone. My father lost everything at 52, I said. Not because he was weak, because he trusted someone completely and moved too slowly when that trust was broken. For 4 years, I watched him try to explain to people that his name on a document wasn't really his name. Nobody builds everything they touch. Some of us just learn the hard way where the soft ground is. Maya was quiet. Are we fixable? She asked. Yes, I said, but not with secrets. She reached over and put her hand over mine. I didn't pull away, but I want to be honest with you. Because this story deserves honesty, I didn't feel relief in that moment. I felt something more complicated than relief. The particular feeling of a man who has found the rot, opened the wall, and is now standing in front of the real repair work, which is always slower and harder and more expensive than the discovery. We were not fixed. We were at the beginning of fixing. And that is a different thing entirely. But we were both still at the table. And for that morning, in that light, with the coffee going cold in our hands, that was enough.